Well, hello there, everybody. Welcome to the show. Just doing my last second checks for any final patron or member questions. And now that is all caught up and we are ready to go. There is the TikTok Shives from Dana. Hi, everybody. Hi, Dana. Hi, everybody else. So welcome to the show. Glad you could all be here. LVZ, no buck dancing allowed talk says, what's going on? PG County in the building. Hello, PG County, Washington County. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. I say for the second or third time. As usual, I will be answering questions that were submitted ahead of time by my wonderful Patreon patrons and channel members. So if you have something in the live chat that you wish me to acknowledge or respond to or whatever, especially if you were planning on being generous and tossing a super chat my way, which is always appreciated and encouraged, if at all possible, please hold on to whatever you have until I get through the patron and member questions, because at that point I will turn my full attention to the live chat and we can talk about whatever you want for the rest of the show. But while I'm answering the patron and member questions, I'm mostly, almost entirely, in fact, paying attention to those, so I won't be following the chat. Oh, Boxy Brown, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Stephen, yes, it's a West Delaware thing. How dare you? How dare you? Those are fighting words. Delaware is ours. Anyway, let's begin with the patron and member questions. Here we go. And it starts out with the first question from Joanna, who says, what's your stance on moderate supporters of the far left, like the Die Linke Party in Germany, which I'm a member of, or other political movements? I thought it would help to engage with leftists instead of constantly hearing about fascists like Trump or Elon. But anyway, I love your videos, especially the ones about Star Trek, since I don't have much to do with US politics. We have enough problems here in Germany. 20% voted for the fascist AfD and 28% for the right-wing CDU. Not a great time for a leftist trans woman. All the best, Joanna. Well, thank you very much, and best of luck to you. I think it's better for moderates to support the far left than support the far right. Obviously, I would love for people, who are more moderate or more toward the center to throw their lot in with the more progressive parties and try to reach consensus and form compromise with people on the left than with people on the right. Because I think if things shift to the left and policy and government action and society in general becomes more progressive in character, I think that's good for everybody, moderates and leftists, and even right wingers, even though they would never admit it. It's better for everybody. So yeah, I think I highly encourage moderates to support left parties. Absolutely. William Tucker says, William Shatner just celebrated another birthday. Do you think he can still contribute to Star Trek, or is this just superfluous and gratuitous? He really didn't get a good send-off in Generations. Keep doing what you do, thanks. I guess you're referring to the rumor that there is a Star Trek project in development that Shatner would be a part of, that he would star in or have some role in, and that the show would be centered on one version or another of Captain Kirk. I mean, it's not just his age. Remember, Shatner I think he just turned 94. I think this birthday he had a few days ago was his 94th. He seems to be in phenomenal shape. He does not look or sound or act like a 94-year-old. In fact, Jason and I were making fun of it last weekend when we were recording the podcast about how William Shatner is like more, I think, he's 10 years or even more than 10 years older than Patrick Stewart, but he seems like he's about 20 years younger than Patrick Stewart. Like he just seems like he's full of life, and he's not always the greatest person, but in terms of his health and his vitality, he seems like, he would be perfectly capable of taking on another acting role, depending on how demanding it was. But do we need William Shatner to play Captain Kirk again in Star Trek? No, we don't. And do I particularly want to see that? No, I don't. I agree with you that the ending that they gave Kirk in Generations was not great, but that was 30 years ago. It's time to move on. Like the work of a franchise like Star Trek should not be to continuously go back and tinker with shit they did decades ago. The work of a franchise like Star Trek or Star Wars or any kind of long-running franchise, the work of it should be to create new work in the present moving forward, not to constantly look backwards and go, well, William Shatner's still alive, and, a lot of people didn't like that ending in Generations. Let's do it again. No, don't do that. Leave it be. It's okay to have some underwhelming stuff in the catalog. That's fine. It's not all going to be perfect. And you know what? Current fans have been really spoiled by a lot of fan service, and they should get used to fucking living with shit sometimes. It's not all going to be good, folks, and that's okay. You don't have to like it, but let's not get any more used to this idea of, the ending to that last series was unsatisfactory, so we demand that you go back and take another crack at it. Like, no, let's not do that. Let's just move on. But no, Shatner, I mean, physically it seems like he would be up for some form of that, but I would rather not see it. Don Quixote, with the withdrawal from NATO and the general alienation of our allies and the prospect of European nations rearming, could closing our military bases be coming? And if so, could Trump end up bringing those troops back here to keep us in line if he were to declare martial law? That's a really good question. Technically, we have not withdrawn from NATO, although I hasten to add, yet. Who knows when that's coming? Who knows when that unenforceable executive order is going to be signed? But I mean, that there is certainly a far more hostile and negative posture being taken toward NATO than there ever has been in the history of the United States, or in the history of NATO. And so who knows? But I don't know. I mean, it seems like projecting military strength into the world is something that Trump would want to continue doing. Like, even though economically and rhetorically he has been very isolationist, he's also very much, the world belongs to us and we can do whatever we want, and we're the ones with the biggest stick, and we're going to use that stick to get our way in everything. So that part of his philosophy, if you could even call it that, I don't think it's coherent enough to be called a philosophy, but that would seem to indicate that he wouldn't want to close international military bases. But again, like, who knows? And if it did turn out that the main reason he was closing military bases and recalling troops to the United States was so that he would have troops on hand to enforce martial law, wouldn't surprise me. I would want to know who gave him the idea, because it's a smart enough idea that he certainly wouldn't have thought of it himself. Farah Grimm, in Star Trek Picard, Jean-Luc Picard dies from a terminal illness. After his death, a perfect copy of his memories is uploaded into a synthetic body that looks, thinks, and behaves just like him. Everyone treats this new version as if he is still Picard. But here's the dilemma. If someone managed to cure the disease in his original body and bring it back, wouldn't that body have a stronger claim to being the real Jean-Luc? Is this new version truly Picard, or is it just a convenient way for the writers to have their cake and eat it too? Following that line of thought, what about Data? He's now a blend of Data, B4, and Lore, yet everyone acts as if he's the same Data who died in Nemesis. Is that really still Data, or just another narrative shortcut? So I think the show itself demands that we take slightly different interpretations of Picard and Data. I feel like they went out of their way when Picard was brought back as a robot at the end of season 1 of Picard. I feel like they really went out of their way to establish that he was literally the same Picard, just in a different body. I think we are, science aside, philosophy aside, within the fiction of the show, we, the audience, are intended to accept that Picard in the synthetic body is literally the same guy, not a copy of Picard who thinks he's Picard and everybody treats like Picard, but literally the same guy brought back to life. Whereas, and your suggestion of what happens if they were able to bring his body back to life, and then, you know, which one would be the real Picard? That's a really great philosophical question. And we might end up with something like a William and Thomas Riker situation where they both have equal claim to being the quote unquote real Jean-Luc. But as far as Data, I think in that case, they do acknowledge that he is not the same Data. Now, they acknowledge it briefly and then try really hard to glide past it so that we will accept this new Data as the same Data. But remember, when this current version of Data meets Captain Picard again for the first time, Picard references Data's death in season 1 of Picard. And this Data, the new Data, acknowledges that version of him died and is at peace. So this Data is not literally the same Data. He has all the same memories. And as you say, he also has memories from B4 and from lore. He's kind of like a super Data, right? But they acknowledge, at least briefly, that he is not meant to be the exact same guy. But then everybody treats him like the same guy. And we as the audience, I think, are meant to emotionally kind of embrace him as though he was the same guy. But it's a slightly different trick they're trying to pull off. And in that case, I do think it's a case of trying to have your cake and eat it too. I don't think they're necessarily trying to have their cake and eat it too with the Picard situation, because Picard comes back right away and they go out of their way to make it clear, like, no, this isn't a copy. This is literally supposed to be the same guy, just in a different body. Whereas with Data, they don't want to erase Data's death or his most recent death. They don't want to erase that. But at the same time, they want to have Data around because it's the fan service season and everybody wants to see all the people. So they try to finesse it by saying, well, that Data's still dead, but there's this new Data who has a few extra things, but he's still basically the same Data. Like, that's a case, I think, of trying to have their cake and eat it too. And I think it's a little bit of a cheat. David Colby is driving through Omelas in a bus, and if the people on the bus stop being happy, the bus explodes. I love it. I love everything about it. You know what pisses me off about Lift Us Up Above Le Guin's Estate's copyright lawyers in season 1 of Strange New Worlds? The ending. And the beginning, middle, the intro, credits, and the music, acting, writing, set design. Anyway, the thing I wanted to talk about today is, like, they completely fuck over Pike's character in the ending there. Does no child suffer in your Federation? The answer to that is no. That's the point of the Federation, actually. Moreover, she's talking to a man who is quite literally about to sacrifice his life and limb to protect those children. He is actively engaged in taking suffering for himself to save children, an actual counter-argument to the vapid misreading of the Omelas story presented in the episode. And they don't fucking articulate it. It's the ending episode captain's speech, man. And worse, this missed a chance to engage with the text. The original short story is about how we can't imagine utopia, but Star Trek is about imagining a utopia. I'm with you on some of this, but not all of it. I think some of what you're suggesting would have muddied the water with the story that they were trying to tell. And I personally really like that story. Obviously, we disagree. I think Lift Us Where Suffering Cannot Reach is one of the best episodes of Strange New Worlds. I really, really like it a lot. And I really like the way they use the story to bring out elements of Pike and his character. And I think Pike comes across really good in the story. And I think Pike's ending, where his first instinct is to try and go and save the kid after he realizes the kid has been locked into the machine. And then when he is told basically that's not going to happen, you'll never get there. And even if you are somehow able to get there, if you unplug him from the machine, he'll immediately die. Like, there's no saving the kid. Once he realizes that, he gives, I forget her name now, but he gives her a chance to kind of explain herself, and she does. And Pike is not convinced, and he's disgusted, and he leaves. And the impression we're given is that he's washing his hands of this place, and he's never coming back. I think that's a good ending. And I think if we were to bring in, if we were to make the comparison of the, you know, the Omelas situation and Pike's own situation, if we were to make that more um, overt to the point where Pike would even mention it to her in a speech, not only does that, I mean, I think that that muddies the water of the story they're trying to tell with Pike. The story they're trying to tell with Pike in this episode is that he is sort of offered living in this place as a potential way to escape his fate, as a potential way of going there post injury. So he's already sacrificed himself and saved, you know, the kids that he's, you know, decided he's going to accept his fate to save. But then after doing that, he can come to this place, and their advanced medical technology will be able to heal him in ways that, you know, medical technology in the Federation can't, and he will escape his disability and he'll be able to live a happy life. But when he realizes what this society is, he decides, I'm not, that's not something I can do. And you know, in a sense, he becomes one of the ones who walks away. You know, he decides that this bargain is not one that he is willing to take, and so he makes the choice to walk away. And that is the story they choose to tell with Pike in this episode. And I think that is a good story. You are suggesting that they should have told a different story, and that's fine to think that, but I'm happy with the story they did tell with Pike. And I think if they had thrown in the bit that you're saying, that would have muddied the water and would have taken focus off of the point they were trying to make about Pike with the story. And also, I disagree that Star Trek is about imagining a utopia. Like, I mean, I think that's part of it. I think that's definitely a part of the premise, but I don't think Star Trek is primarily about imagining a utopia. Although having said that, it would have, I mean, if they had chosen to tell the story a different way, and they had chosen to confront the impossible utopia with the Federation and the apparently possible utopia, if they had chosen to try and do that, that's completely valid. That's, you know, I feel like you're just saying they should have written a completely different episode because you don't like the episode they wrote. And that's fine. But I like the episode they wrote. So I don't really see a need for them to have done a different one. Jim P. Hi, Steve. I'm not sure if anyone has ever said anything to you, but you do a great job interpreting our questions, especially when we miss words. Anyway, on to my actual question. My wife and I enjoy watching breakdowns and reviews of the movies and TV shows we watch, including yours. We've noticed that a lot of these channels have gone to a very negative view about everything that comes out, even titling videos was XYZ bad. Have you noticed this as well? And are we straying too far away from just enjoying the shows, movies for entertainment value instead of nitpicking every perceived mistake in them? I also agree Andor could have been 3 to 5 episodes shorter. Thanks again. I think it needs to be something between those extremes. First of all, yes, a lot of online criticism, a lot of YouTube movie reviews and YouTube movie criticism and movie and TV, it's just sort of media related content, is extremely negative. A lot of it, I think, is negative in a bad faith way, where people are, as you say, nitpicking and looking for reasons to declare something bad, because the perception is, and I think to an extent the reality as well, is that that kind of content gets more attention. And as I have said many times before, that is not the purpose of criticism. The purpose of criticism is not to point out why everything sucks. The point of criticism is for the critic to honestly articulate what they think about the thing that they are reviewing. And it can be negative, or it can be positive, or it can be somewhere in between. It depends on what they think. It depends on what their reaction to it is. So that's what, so it, no, I don't think that we need to be in the headspace of just enjoy things for entertainment. I mean, that's perfectly fine. And if you're just like, there are lots of things that I watch and I enjoy that I know intellectually do not meet my aesthetic criteria for what makes something good. Right. I know that The Room is not a good movie as I would normally judge that. But I love The Room. I could watch The Room 5 times a day and never get sick of it. I absolutely love it. It's a terrible movie, but it's terrible in a really entertaining, fascinating way. So it's perfectly fine to occasionally, or even often, just sit back, relax, turn your brain off and watch something and accept that, yeah, it's not good, it's goofy, it's dumb, it's whatever, but you enjoy it and you're going to have a good time with it. But if you decide that you want to share your critical opinion of something, if you decide you want to write an article or make a video or whatever, make a podcast where you are reviewing movies or reviewing TV shows, your goal should not be to find every single thing negative about it and just talk about that and talk about why it sucks, nor should your goal be to be a cheerleader and strain to find every single good thing about it and make it sound like the greatest thing ever. Your goal should be to share your honest opinion of it. And it will be your opinion. It will be subjective. There's no such thing as an objectively good or an objectively bad work of art. It's all a person's opinion. But your opinion should be your opinion. And if it's a negative opinion, that's fine, but articulate it. Don't just shit on the thing. Don't just say, oh, it fucking sucks and it was stupid and I hated it. And like, articulate it. Try to figure out why you didn't like it and say that. If you really liked it, try to identify what about it you did like and describe that for your audience. And if there were some things you liked and some things you didn't, again, that's what you talk about in your review. But it has to be your honest opinion. Gene Siskel said, the only possible value that the opinion of a critic could ever have is dependent on the assumption that it is that critic's honest opinion. So you're not just looking for things to shit on and you're not just looking for things to celebrate. You're saying what you honestly think, and that's what it should be. And the best critics, that's what it is. Whether you agree with them or not, that's what it is, that they're honestly sharing their opinion. But you're right. Very, very often it has devolved into just people looking for the negative things, and that's it. And that's too bad. And it sucks. And it's really, really spoiled criticism for an entire generation of people. Some random geek who is only going to ask one question / request from now on, mostly. Please give money to my friends Joanna and Phoenix and check out charitylinks.page. No, serious, the only way Joanna eats sometimes is if folks give her money, like me regularly. Anyway, Steve, I have one viewer. They're cool. Just want to talk movies and TV because politics is depressing. He hates Trump. I think he feels ashamed to have to pay for a $6,000 medical bill for his heart surgery. Payments come out of his paycheck. Fuck our healthcare system. But I think he also blames himself because of his diet. He loves red meat. It is because I love fatty foods I have heart problems. I think he is just blaming himself, but this reminds me of how I hate this society. Because this viewer has to pay off a $6,000 medical bill, he blames himself for having unnecessary heart surgery, feeling I could have done things differently. Instead of saying, this system is fucked up, let's change it. Folks would rather blame themselves because of personal responsibility, I guess. Sorry, not a question. Well, I mean, there's nothing wrong with taking personal responsibility, and there's nothing wrong if you do find yourself suffering a health condition that is the result of you making poor health choices throughout your life. There's nothing wrong with acknowledging that and saying, you know what, I'm going to try to do better. I'm going to try to eat healthier or exercise more or, you know, whatever. There's nothing wrong with that. But the problem is when you go overboard with it and you go from I've made some mistakes and I'm suffering for those mistakes to the fact that I am stuck paying off a $6,000 medical bill is my fault because, you know, I didn't eat right and I ate too many fatty foods and, you know, whatever. I think those are two separate issues. You know, I mean, you're right. The system is fucked up. Nobody should ever find themselves having to pay off a $6,000 or in some cases, many, many, many more thousands of dollars medical bills for a necessary life-saving procedure. Like whether you got the heart disease because it was a genetic history in your family that you had no control over, or whether you got the heart disease because you ate too many fatty meals in your life and didn't exercise enough. It doesn't make any difference. If you need if you need heart surgery to continue to live, you should be able to get that procedure done without having to go into a financially crippling amount of debt. So like those are two separate issues. Yeah, I mean, there's absolutely nothing wrong with personal responsibility. More people should take personal responsibility for themselves and for their health, but they shouldn't feel like they have to do it for financial reasons. They should do it because they want to lead the best life they can, because they want to live a long life and spend a long time with their friends and their loved ones and have wonderful experiences and have a great life and have a healthy, happy life where they can be comfortable and they can feel good. Like, that's why, not because, oh shit, if I don't take care of myself, I'm going to wind up, over my head in debt. That's a really fucked up reason to decide that you want to take better care of yourself. You should be able to decide to take better care of yourself because you want to for yourself. And if you happen to be someone who has not taken very good care of yourself and now you're having health issues, you shouldn't have financial issues to deal with it on top of the health issues. So, I mean, I understand how your viewer feels, but there are two different things that are being smashed together because of the fucked up system that we have. John Burns, yeah, things are bizarre, but the Democrats taking back the House in 2026 should be their focus, right? I mean, they've stated that goal after voting for another Republican bill next year to ensure the government doesn't collapse, right? They've shown that that is their stated goal already. But winning the House, they've stated that, right? Are you going to do a video on the Democrats showing that they will win the House next year? Because Trump isn't getting Greenland and he isn't getting Canada if they do. And not getting Canada is kind of important to me and my countrymen. Go Dems. I mean, I'm not going to do a video showing that the Democrats will win the House next year because I don't know that they will. But once we get closer to election season, I mean, I will definitely start making more videos that are explicitly about the election and encouraging people to vote, especially to vote in the primaries and to vote for the most progressive candidates available in the primaries. And then once the primaries are finished and the nominees have been chosen, whoever they are, whether they're who you voted for in the primary or not, to vote for the Democrat in the general election with the goal, yes, of the Democrats taking control of the House. You're absolutely right. That has to be the immediate electoral goal for sure. I think somebody said, I forget who said, it was one of the Democratic senators. I forget who it was recently. It might have been Chris Murphy, the senator from Connecticut. It was a Democratic senator who said, if we win the midterms, we can cut our time in hell in half. And I don't think it's quite that simple. Like, the Democrats winning back the House would not fix everything, but it would definitely be a big help. So I like that message. I like the message of, take back the House in 2026 and cut our time in hell in half. Like, I think that's a good message. But yes, that absolutely has to be the goal. That absolutely has to be the goal for the sake of us in the United States and also for the sake of the good people of Greenland and the good people of Canada and everybody else in the goddamn world. Next question from I Respect Canada More and More. Steve, I'm not a political intellectual. However, I do pay close attention. With a serious answer, please explain why, in reality, the leadership and the spokespeople of the party in power believe, just expect a historically current ally of America, sovereign Canada and its people should want their entire country to become the 51st state of the U.S. Not advocating for this at all. How does the GOP surmise this to actually occur? It's preposterous, isn't it? I have never swore live on the internet. However, what in tarnation? On an exponentially better positive note, I've taken a civic step. I've purchased an In Our America bumper sticker. Whether the bumper sticker knows it or not, it will proudly be on my vehicle. PSA, in the time in which we live, being civic-minded isn't merely holding a viewpoint or how one feels about something. It's engaging in an activity or activities which are responsible and which effectuate positive communal change for the greater good. Very well said. And wear your or use your In Our America bumper sticker with pride. That's great. The answer to your question is I do not think any of them, including Trump, have remotely thought it through. You're right. It is not a serious idea. The entire nation of Canada becoming one single state in the United States is absolutely absurd. And nobody who deserves to be listened to takes that seriously. And I don't think any of them have any idea how that would even work. I don't think they care. I think it's just a thing that they say. And I think this is a part of the MAGA movement that I think a lot of people forget sometimes, but you see evidence of it when you see like people on the right complaining about some of the things that Trump is doing. Now, it's not a lot of people. Most of the MAGA movement is still very much in the cult, and they're not questioning anything that Trump is doing. And they have convinced themselves or been convinced that everything Trump is doing is great and it's a huge success. And we are the envy of the world. But the ones who have kind of fallen off the boat because, oh, he's deporting people that I know, he's deporting people that I like, that I think are good people, or he's imposing tariffs that are going to ruin my business or going to ruin, the place I work for, or going to hurt people that I know, or whatever, are going to raise prices and raise costs for my family. I didn't sign up for this. Like, the reason why these things are surprises to them is because they honestly didn't think beyond the rhetoric. Like, they just liked that Trump was talking shit. And they never projected forward to what would this be like if this actually happened. And it's the Canada is the 51st state thing is a similar phenomenon, I think. How would Canada become the 51st state in theory? They don't care. That doesn't matter to them. What matters is the rhetoric. What matters is the posturing. What matters is the bravado. That's what they respond to. That's what they like. That's what they want. The details are irrelevant to them because they just make up whatever details they want to be true anyway. Like, I feel like a lot of people don't fully understand how detached from reality a lot of these Trump supporters are. It literally doesn't matter to a great many of them what is true, because they will just tell themselves that whatever they want to be true is true, and then that will be that. So no, they don't think about that. And they certainly don't think about whether or not the people who actually live in Canada want to become the 51st state, or why they would want that or not want that. That never enters their mind. All they need to hear is Trump say, oh, the people in Canada think it's a great idea. And Trump just says that. He has no reason to think that. He has no basis for that. In fact, it doesn't matter. He just says it. Oh, Canada, it would be a lot better for Canada if it became the 51st state. And the people of Canada know that. He's just making that up. But the people he's saying it to, who are convinced by it, they don't care. They just believe him because that's what they want to be true. General Contact Unit problem child. Okay, so suppose whoever the Dems put forward in 2028, my money's on Walz, very obviously wins popular vote and electoral college, but they come up with some bullshit about fake electors again, only this time it actually works, and Vance or whoever manages to steal the presidency. What will you say if people in your audience come to you asking for advice about what political action they should take to try and change things? In the past, you've said you don't believe it's at all practical to try and do some kind of revolution, but what else will be left to people to try if you end up in a situation where elections are just being outright rigged? I'm not saying this is necessarily you, but there's a lot of liberals and center leftists who've always focused on electoralism to change things. I'm worried that if real elections stop being a thing, they'll have no idea what to do other than just put up with living in a dictatorship because their ideology doesn't really have recourse for that situation. Well, I take your point, but I would submit that in the case of a lot of leftists who talk about revolution as an alternative or a superior tactic to electoral politics, their ideology doesn't actually have recourse for that situation either. They say it does. They like to talk about revolution. They like to talk about going, rising up and going beyond elections and taking back the streets and taking back the country through, direct violent action. They like to talk as though their ideology has recourse for that situation, but it actually doesn't, because if it did, they would have done something by now. And I don't say they would have done something by now just because things on the ground are bad. I say that because they have been saying the exact same thing for my entire life and for longer. And things keep getting worse and worse and worse. And the people on the far left who say time for revolution, they never start the revolution. So am I convinced, am I confident that if the situation you are describing were to happen and we were to find ourselves in a post-election United States where Trump or whoever the Republican candidate is has verifiably lost the election, but they have stolen power and have held on to power in spite of losing the election? Am I confident in that situation that people on the far left who are always talking about revolution will rise up and start a revolution? No, I'm not. I'm not saying it definitely won't happen. It might. But am I saying it probably will happen? No. I have no confidence in that at all. Because they have shown themselves, and again, this isn't everybody on the left. I'm not characterizing everybody on the left like this, but a lot of the leftists who make the biggest noise, especially online, who have the biggest mouths, and who like to shoot their mouths off about how, you know, we need to rise up and start a revolution. They're the ones that I expect would probably be among those who would decide, you know what, we're just going to have to put up with living in a dictatorship. Because they have shown themselves over and over and over again that they can call for revolution, they can demand for revolution, they can pound their fists and get angry and say, why haven't people started a revolution? But they're not going to start one. And if somebody else started one, they probably wouldn't fight in one. So take that for whatever it's worth. And again, hey, you know, if we do find ourselves in that dire situation, I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. But, you know, I said what I said. Thomas, as a follow-up to my previous question from the last Ask Away, in what sense is it the responsibility of the left-wingers to bend to the will of the Democrats, who have shown again and again they distaste them and will never in their life do anything for them? Why should we support a party that refuses to support us? Last question was if you believe that Democrats could be leftist at all. Well, it's not just about supporting the party. There's also an element of taking control of the party. I mean, the party is not a static thing. The party has changed in the past over the years and can and will change again. And a lot of what drives that change is the people that are participating in the party, and the people that are providing support for the party, and the people that are running for office for the party, and the people that are volunteering, and the people that, most importantly, are voting. So it's not just left-wingers bending to the will of Democrats. It's a mutual thing that needs to happen. The people on the left who have sworn they will never, ever, ever vote for Democrats, no matter what, need to move, need to get over that, and need to start voting for Democrats. People in the Democratic Party need to recognize that there are progressives and people on the far left who would be willing to vote for them and support them if they found a reason to do so. And so the party needs to stop ignoring those people and dismissing those people and writing off their concerns and writing off their suggestions and proposals and policy and agendas and stuff, and start taking them seriously as well. So the party and the potential voters further to the left both need to move. But the goal isn't to get people on the left to move closer to the center and become more like centrist Democrats. That would be counterproductive. That would defeat the whole purpose. The point, in my mind, is to get the party to move further to the left. But the party's not going to move further to the left if there aren't people further to the left who are willing to support it and vote for it and eventually take it over and drag the whole thing to the left over time. That's what needs to happen. So it's not just a matter of left-wingers being willing to go toward the party while the party stands still or continues to inch to the right. APC, what is your favorite episode or performance from a character or actor from a previous Trek show on a sequel, i.e. TOS guest appearance on Next Gen? Ooh, that's a good question. phew. I'm stuck between two. I would say either James Doohan as Scotty on Relics or Mark Leonard as Sarek in Sarek in the episode Sarek. They're both really good episodes. I think in terms of performance, I would probably give it to Mark Leonard. All due respect to James Doohan and all due respect to the performance he gives in Relics, which is terrific. But I think I prefer Mark Leonard's performance as Sarek in that episode. But it's close. It's one of those two. And I guess if I have to, make a decision and make it one or the other, I would say Mark Leonard and Sarek. But it's either that one or James Doohan in Relics. Andy Lawler thinks it's a damn shame that the Department of Education is being shuttered, but at least Gazans are still being massacred. Am I right? See, you look on the bright side. Hey, Steve, being the writer that you are, both by schooling and profession, has the idea of writing a novel, novella, collection of short stories, etc., ever taken root in your mind? I'm a fairly competent academic writer and can be creative on occasion, but the one idea I've had for a fictional piece has spent decades trying to get from my brain onto paper. Everybody here obviously enjoys your writing, thus you've got 300,000 potential buyers going into the endeavor. So is best-selling author Steve Shives something you'd like to add to your resume? Thanks and have a great weekend, everybody. I've never thought about it seriously. I have thought about it here and there. I mean, I've written short stories over the years that have never been published anywhere, and I have ideas for others that I suppose I could write at some point. And if I got enough of them published in various places, I suppose I could put together a short story collection and publish that. I do tend to prefer short story, at least for my own creative writing. I do think I would be better suited to being a short story writer than a novelist. I have had ideas for novels as well over the years, but again, it's nothing that I've ever taken seriously, and it's nothing that I've ever felt like I had the time to really sit down and write it, And then after that, it was, okay, I've written it. Now what do I do? Like, how do you get, I don't have an agent. I don't know how to go about getting an agent. Getting a book published, even getting short stories published is a really, really challenging thing. You have to really devote time to that, not just to the writing, but to the getting yourself out there. Like, you can get short stories published in magazines and journals without having an agent. And then for many writers, that's how they get an agent. They get themselves published in journals and magazines to get their name out there. And then they can, use that to try and get representation. But that requires a lot of work that I don't have the time to do, or that, and at the moment that I'm not all that interested in doing. I'm creatively fulfilled and financially taken care of with my YouTube work. So that's what I'm focusing on. But if at some point in the future, I am more motivated to write creatively and try to get something published, and I'm maybe in a good enough situation financially where I can take a longer break from YouTube than I would be comfortable doing at the moment, to focus on writing something. I mean, maybe it's not like a burning passion that I feel like I have to do that. But there's the idea is in my brain somewhere. It's just not anything that I felt like it would be the best use of my time. But, and best-selling author Steve Shives, that would almost certainly never happen. But it might be cool to get something published at some point, but I don't know. If it doesn't happen, that's fine. It's not something that I feel like, I would be, there would be like some kind of hole if I didn't do that. Air One Fire, the man with access to axes. Hi, Steve. What do you think is the greatest or most epic battle in all of science fiction, and why? Endor, Wolf 359, or mayhap something else? Best wishes. I mean, I would say the assault on the Death Star in Star Wars. I mean, it might not be the biggest and most epic in terms of number of ships involved or whatever, but I mean, that's one hell of an action sequence. It's, a lot of people have said this, and it's designed as this. It's a dogfight in space. It's really exciting. It's really well edited. It pays off multiple important story beats, right? With Luke using the Force to overcome the odds and destroy the Death Star, and Obi-Wan coming back to him through the through the spirit, through the use the Force, Luke, and the disembodied voice, and also with Han Solo coming back at the last minute to save the day and showing that he does care about the rebellion and he didn't just take his money and leave. Like, in terms of story and in terms of just being an awesome, well done action sequence, it's fantastic. And and the fight scene between the Millennium Falcon and the TIE fighters earlier in Star Wars is fucking great too. So I would nominate either one of those. I mean, not that the big battle of Endor at the end of Jedi isn't good, it's terrific, and not that some of the big space battles in the Star Trek shows in the 90s weren't really cool. But I mean, the fight between the Enterprise and the Reliant in Star Trek 2 is fucking great. And that's almost all tension, and that's just two ships and a lot of tension, and it's fantastic. So, I mean, I prefer that to Endor or Wolf 359 or any of the big battles in Deep Space Nine or any of those. But if I had to pick, it would probably be the assault on the Death Star. Isaiah Taylor, I've been constructing a model of an Ambassador-class starship, AMT ETRL Enterprise C kit from 1998. I christened her the USS Ishtar, NCC 26293, after the Mesopotamian goddess of war and fertility. And Isaiah gave us a picture so you can see what she looks like. That's a good-looking ship. I like the color. I love the shade of blue on the nacelles and on the deflector dish there. That's really nice looking. It's a really nice looking little ship. Anyway, Isaiah continues, while building, I began to ask myself, what would a ship's interior look like if such a ship actually existed? I'm tinkering with the idea of a radical new direction for the franchise. Steve, would you be interested in a retro future inspired Star Trek show set during the Wrath of Khan movie era and having 80s retro future aesthetics? Pipes, ductwork, manual levers to turn, more dials, gauges, and switches. Thoughts? That is exactly what I would want the interior of my Star Trek ship to look like if I did a Star Trek show or a movie. That's what I would want it to look like. I would not want touch screens. I would want it to have buttons and dials and switches. Absolutely. I would want to make it as practical as I could. I just think that's more interesting to watch. I think it gives actors more to do. When they're in a scene, it makes it look like they're doing stuff if they have to actually physically do stuff instead of just run their fingers over a flat, non-functional touchpad or, something that's made up to look like a touchpad. And I just think it looks more interesting, and it looks more like a real ship, even though it's not. It's a fake imaginary spaceship. But if you can build it with reference to like a real submarine or a real airplane or a real spacecraft, I think it's always better to do that, regardless of era, but especially if you're doing it in the movie era, which is my favorite era aesthetically of the franchise. Yeah, I would love that. I would love something like that. Absolutely. Agent Meister, whose life at the moment resembles someone trying to whisk eggs with a cheese grater. Well, good luck with that. Pelrojoy, Steve, I've been an atheist for most of the last 15 years. April 2010 being the last time I went to a religious ceremony that wasn't part of a wedding or funeral for a family or friend. Old habits die hard, however, and there are still elements of my Catholic upbringing that I haven't shaken off. For example, there are times I would visit and indeed sit in quiet contemplation in my local cathedral. I don't believe there is a deity to commune with there, but I find some peace in the solitude, the architecture, and when the place is done up for Christmas. I recently read a novel based on the life of Eve and her life during and after Eden. I read it in one sitting, and it is one of the most beautiful books I've ever read, though I doubt I would have appreciated it as much were it not for the fact I was raised a Christian. I know you're an atheist, but would you mind me asking if there's anything from your religious upbringing that still has a presence in your life, however peripheral? Well, yeah, I mean, I didn't really have a religious upbringing. My family was kind of Christian by default, but we weren't super observant. We only actually attended church for a few months when I was, I think, 7 years old. So we weren't, I mean, my mom's family was very churchy. Like my grandfather on my mom's side was a minister, was a pastor of a church. And one of my uncles on that side of the family is, I believe currently, or at least last I heard, was a pastor of a church. But I was never super close with that side of the family. And my family, of me and my brother and my mom and dad, were never super religious. But yeah, I mean, there are elements of sort of Christian culture that still mean something personally to me, even though I do not believe in the faith. Um, there are religious hymns, religious songs that I enjoy, especially around Christmas time. Um, you know, um, "Oh Holy Night," I think is an absolutely beautiful song. I don't believe that the story it's telling literally happened. Like, I don't believe that, you know, baby Jesus was the son of God, and I don't believe the story of, like, you know, the story that we see in the Bible and the popular story of, you know, being born in the manger and the you know, the three wise men coming to give gift. Like, I think that's all myth. But I appreciate it as a story. I appreciate what it represents in terms of, you know, like human beings yearning for something higher, yearning for some kind of redemption. Um, the idea of the divine coming down and entering in our mortal realm, like that's something that you find in myths and stories from all sorts of different religious traditions all throughout history. Um, so I like it for that, and I just think it's a beautiful song. It just has wonderful. It's you know, a singer with a good voice that can hit those notes. I mean, my God, it's a gorgeous song. And there are other things like that. You know, there are cultural things, there are literary things, there are mythological things, there are passages in the Bible, specifically the King James Bible, that I think are just beautiful and that express ideas and express moral principles in really profound ways. Now, I don't think those principles or those ideas originate in the Bible. Like, I think, you know, I don't think the Bible is a source of any kind of unique wisdom. And I definitely don't think that it is divinely inspired or anything like that. But there are passages in the King James version of it, which is the main version that I am familiar with, that uh, poetically, rhetorically, and in terms of the ideas they're expressing are just beautiful, and I treasure them. So there are things like that. Yeah, sure. And I think I can relate to what you're saying. Yeah. And in a way, I think when you're able to view it from the outside and appreciate it for its aesthetic qualities and for its historical qualities or its cultural qualities, and you're not locked into having to accept it according to the declared interpretation of your church, I think that opens you up to appreciating it in many different ways, as opposed to being compelled to say, no, it is only this one thing and it only has value in this way, which is the way that a lot of religious folks are sort of taught to appreciate their religion. M.W. Ridra, trigger warning, child essay mention. Duly noted. Hey, Steve, did you get a chance to look up the Jonah Bevin stuff since my last question? By the way, minor pushback, but last time you remarked, of course, a former governor of Kentucky is a POS, but I'd like to point out that Kentucky's current governor is actually a good one, and that we shouldn't jump to conclusions about anyone because of their state, unless that state is North Dakota. Completely agree. Andy Beshear, right, is the governor of Kentucky, and yes, he does seem like a very good guy. So I am suitably chastened and agree with you about North Dakota. Nothing good can ever come from there. Anyway, update. Jonah Bevin filed for an emergency protective order from Matt Bevin. At court, Matt decided to represent himself so that he could question his son, the one filing for an EPO against him, directly. Matt's genius strategy included rebutting Jonah's claim that Matt threatened to kill his dog as a child if Jonah didn't behave by asking who paid for the dog's food and bed. Matt also mentioned he was the one who paid for Jonah's therapy in response to Jonah's testimony that Matt's friend essayed him at age 10. Wow. Anyway, the court was unimpressed with Matt's evil bullshit and has granted Jonah's emergency protective order. Well, good. Good. Yeah, that whole, you know, I don't, it's fascinating to me how people can have such a disconnect between how they think people will react to them and how people will actually react to them, and how any reasonable person would assume people would react to them. Like, if you are questioning your own child about, you know, crimes that they have accused you of, forms of abuse that they have accused you of. And your rebuttal to this is to point out that you paid for shit, as though that absolves you. Like it was like, it's okay for me to threaten to kill the dog because I paid for the dog, because I kept the dog in food, because I bought the dog's bed. Like that has, what is wrong with you? Why do you think that would give you the right to do that? And why would you think anybody else would side with you if that was your argument? Like, it's just ridiculous. But that's how a lot of people think. And a lot of people seem incapable of accurately anticipating how other people will react to them. You know, they think because in their mind, well, I paid for the dog, I should be able to threaten to kill the dog if I want. It's my fucking dog. I mean, I legally paid for it, right? Like, okay. And you think most people will see it that way, do you? It's, yeah, it's, but I'm glad that Jonah got the protective order. The Grumpy Monkey. How now, Steve? Sam Raimi's third Spider-Man movie is generally considered the runt of his trilogy, but how bad is it really, do you think? I rewatched these movies recently and was reminded why Spider-Man 1 and 2 are rightly considered two of the greatest superhero movies committed to film. I don't know much about movie making, but I know what I like, and there was always something comparatively off about 3. I liked it without loving it, and I certainly didn't hate it. It falls short compared to its two predecessors, but is a masterpiece compared to some of the superhero movies we've been subjected to in the last decade. What do you think, Steve? Is Spider-Man 3 a bad movie, or is it just not as good as what came before? And apropos of Signalgate, never again do I want to hear anything about Hillary Clinton's emails. I'm watching the exploding clown car that is U.S. democracy from Ireland and can't believe it's only been 2 months into a 4-year term. Keep your head up, Steve, and keep up the great work. Well, thank you. And yeah, believe me, we're feeling that over here too. The whole, oh, it's only been 4 months, or it's only been 2 months thing. Yeah. I don't think Spider-Man 3 is a bad movie. I agree with you. It's not even in the same class as Spider-Man 1 or especially Spider-Man 2, which I think is maybe still the greatest superhero movie ever made. It is absolutely a masterpiece. But Spider-Man, the problem with Spider-Man 3 is it's too long and it's got one too many villains. You know, like that's it. It's overstuffed and it's overlong, but there are some brilliant things in that movie. There are some hilarious things in that movie. Everybody makes fun of like Goth Peter and Tobey Maguire's scene where he's like dancing around and being a douchebag. I love that. I love that because it's supposed to be silly. It's supposed to be ridiculous. Peter is supposed to be acting like an ass. You're supposed to be laughing at him. That's the point. He's fallen, right? He's become a dick thanks to the suit. He's been corrupted and he's acting like a douchebag. And the reason he's acting like a douchebag instead of doing something darker or more serious is because that's the tone of the movie. So I think all that is great. And I love that confrontation he has with Eddie Brock in the Daily Bugle when he's still sort of, you know, evil Peter. When he accuses Eddie of stealing his pictures and he throws him up against the wall and Eddie says, I'm sorry. And Peter says, you want forgiveness? Get religion. I love that exchange so much. And I mean, the stuff with the Sandman is great. That scene at the end when Sandman apologizes to Peter for being the one who killed Uncle Ben and Peter forgives him and then the Sandman just blows away. It's such a beautiful scene. Like it's such a beautiful scene. And the scene where Sandman first comes back to life as Sandman, like after he's disintegrated in the pit, when he puts himself back together in the sand pit. That is visually just an incredibly beautiful scene. Like there are parts of the movie that are so well done and work so well. And it's just, there's just too much stuff going on. It's a little out of focus, but it's definitely not a bad movie. It's not as good as the previous two, but it's not a bad movie at all. It's just got a little too much going on. I have no mouth and I must ask Steve a question. Brian McKinley. Hey, Steve, just wanted to say that I've really enjoyed your videos where you discuss some of the books that you love and the impact they had on you. Your video on The Great Gatsby made me reevaluate my own opinion of that novel, and I liked your comparisons of the various film versions. Do you plan on doing more videos like that one in the future? I don't know if you've ever read Dune, but that's one that's ripe for discussion and version comparisons. If you don't mind, I have a bonus question. Are you planning to have Jason back on, maybe when season 3 of Strange New Worlds comes out? I loved your different perspectives on season 2. Well, as far as doing other videos about books, possibly, yeah. I mean, I don't have any specific plans, but if I come up with an idea for something like that, or for another, sort of comparison of book versus movie, or something like what that Gatsby video was, of course I would do something like that in the future. I can guarantee you it would not be Dune, because I have not read Dune, and I wouldn't read Dune if somebody put a gun to my head. As far as having Jason is welcome to come back on my channel whenever he wants. I assume we will be doing reviews of season 3 of Strange New Worlds. We haven't specifically said that, but I expect that we will. Doing the reviews for season 2 like we did was Jason's idea. He came to me with that, and I said, of course, yes, absolutely. Like, I love collaborating with Jason on whatever he wants to do, and especially if the project ends up just being the two of us recording ourselves while we talk about stuff, like that's great. So I expect that we will be doing reviews together for season 3 of Strange New Worlds. I can't say for absolute certain, but I expect that we will, yeah, and I hope we will, because I had a great time reviewing season 2 with him too. Tasby12, hey Steve, I haven't written in a while and have been wanting to, so this is more of an editorial comment and question. I can almost picture J.D. Vance on the phone with Trump telling him Walsh went a little funny in the head and he did a very silly thing. He let a journalist from the Atlantic into our top secret Yemeni bombing thread. Well, now let me finish, Mr. President. In other words, who could have possibly imagined that a bunch of goofs and lunatics straight out of a less funny, more insane version of Dr. Strangelove could have screwed something like this up this badly? Boy. Yeah, I mean, you're right. A less funny, more insane version of Dr. Strangelove. Yeah. I mean, it's funny because, like, I don't know if there is an analog in Dr. Strangelove for Trump, because none of those characters are that fucking clueless. Like, as ridiculous as they all are, I don't think there's any of them that are as fucking useless as Trump is. But yeah, that's a really good comparison. That's a really good comparison. Patrick, I've been following you for about a year, just became a new member this week. Thank you very much. Have you already, or if not, could you do a video on your takes on DC films and or series? I would love to see your take on the 1989 Batman movie with Jack Nicholson and Michael Keaton. I love your work. Thank you. Well, again, thank you very much for being around and becoming a member. I have done movie reviews many, many years ago of the Batman and Superman movies, of like the Christopher Reeve Superman movies, and the Tim Burton and then later Joel Schumacher Batman movies. Like, I've just done straight review videos of them. I haven't really done video essay type stuff about them. I think I did talk about Michael Keaton's Batman in an episode of my Best Batman Ever series, I think last year or maybe 2 years ago. I think it was right around the time that the Flash movie came out. And I did one of those to sort of bounce off of that was focused on not any of the specific movies, but just Michael Keaton's take on Batman in general. So I've done that, and I might do something like that again. I mean, I have a particular fondness for Batman Returns. The 89 Batman, I just sort of, I have nostalgic good feelings for it, because it came out when I was 9 years old and I saw it in a movie theater and it totally blew me away. And I like it, but it's one of those movies where I really don't think it's that great of a movie. It has very, very good qualities, especially in terms of the set design and the production design, the visual style and stuff. But as a movie, as a drama, I don't think it's very good. But I do really like Batman Returns. So, I mean, it all depends on whether or not I can come up with a take on it. you know, like a thesis, like something specific to talk about, not just here's what I think about this movie. Here's, you know, why I think it's good or why I think it's bad. Like I would want to come up with I want to have a reason why I'm telling you something about Batman or Batman Returns right now, you know? And if I come up with that, I'll make the video for sure. But until then, I won't. But like I said, if you go back into my archives, probably about 10 or 15 years ago now, I mean, I did do just straight movie reviews of those movies that might interest you. Maggie Sermonara, hi Steve, April 5th, 2025 has been declared hands off a national day of action. From what I've read, it sounds like this protest has reached global dimensions. Possibly it was in another Ask Away episode, but I recall you saying that you regard the information you disseminate on your channel to be your contribution to the cause of our democracy. I consider your contribution to be invaluable. You often achieve with humor what others struggle to articulate directly. I am the definition of a homebody. Since the pandemic, it's only become more true. I've been to a grand total of one protest, an ACT UP protest that encircled the White House in 1992. The cause was George H.W.'s AIDS response. It was exciting and left me with an incredible sense of community. As worried as I am about probably having to attend the hands-off march alone, I feel an extreme sense of obligation. 1,000 characters goes by fast, and my question is, do you feel that it's crucial to have a strong showing on the 5th? Thanks. Yes, I think it would definitely help. I don't think it will do much to persuade any Republicans or people on the right to do anything different, but I think it will encourage other people on the left and, you know, in sort of not on the right, to be more encouraged and be more emboldened and want to do more in the future. I think that's the value of that kind of thing, is having a show of numbers, a show of, you know, look, hey, here we are, you know, this is how many of us there are who are able or willing to come out today. It's a big number. So be encouraged and, you know, maybe be willing to join us in some form, either in person or through some other means. Like, I think that's the value of it. And yeah, I think the main hands-off protest on the 5th is going to be in DC. And there are smaller local ones that are being organized around the country. I think there's even going to be one in Hagerstown. I don't know if I'm going to go or not. But there is going to be one in Hagerstown. And hopefully it'll have a nice turnout, whether I go or not. But yeah, I do think that kind of thing is important. Absolutely. And I hope there is a big turnout. Glenn H., who loves that he can game the 1,000 character limit by putting more information into the name field. Well, don't just give it away like that, Glenn. Hey, Steve, imagine, if you will, a world where the Orange Menace and Wussy X have found a way to co-opt social media, and they can ban all online content creation that doesn't align with their particular worldview. And you, as a progressive creator, have been removed from all platforms, and your means of survival is cut off to you. What would you do to survive? What would you do? But seriously, what would you, Steve, do if you didn't live in a time where you could so openly and easily create whatever content, both personal and political, that you wanted and still support yourself? I'm hoping that your answer will take advantage of your creative talents and not just working maintenance at the local sheets. Anyway, I look forward to seeing your musings on this alternate reality. Thanks again for all you do, and have a great show. I mean, the honest answer is I would probably be forced to just go get a job somewhere. You know, I'd have to go, maybe not working maintenance at Sheets, but, you know, working at a distribution center or a warehouse somewhere, like someplace that paid decent wages. I'd probably have to do something like that. It would be nice to think that I could go get a job in some kind of media field, but I've never actually, other than doing my YouTube channel, like I've never actually worked at a place like that. So, I mean, I don't know how many, you know, places that do media work would be willing to hire a 45-year-old guy who's never actually done that kind of work in a professional capacity before. You know, and same thing with, like, you know, wanting to, maybe I could pursue screenwriting. I could try to be a professional writer or a professional actor or so. Like, I mean, I have absolutely no professional experience with any of that. So I would be starting from scratch, and I don't know if I could afford to do that, or if that would even be something I could do, if that would be viable at all, or if that would just be a waste of time. So the surest route would be to go get a job somewhere and just work to pay the bills, which would suck, but I feel like that would probably be my best and most realistic option. Rob Chris Jansen. Steve, I'd love to hear how you approach recapping an episode or movie for your reviews. For example, do you have your own beat sheet to help you tease out what to and what not to include in the recap before you get on with the review? It depends on the review, and it depends on whether I'm scripting it completely or if I'm just going to wing it and have just a general idea in my head of what I want to say. If I'm doing a review of a movie I've just seen, like if I've just gone to the movie theater and seen it, and I think I have thoughts and I can make a review video of this, then usually what I do is usually I don't even write notes. Sometimes I might write notes if I feel like I have too much to say and I don't want to, and there are certain things I want to make sure I get to and I don't want to forget. I might just write like a bullet list of ideas. But usually what I do with a review, and I do this if I'm writing a script for it too. If I'm just doing a straight review, like a movie review that you would read like on a website of a new movie that's just come out, I try to boil my thoughts or boil my reaction to the thing down to one simple idea, to one main response that I had to it. And then I tie everything to that to give the review some cohesion and some focus, and also to make sure that I don't ramble on for 2 hours about every idea that comes into my head. Like it helps me to again, whether I'm writing a full script or whether I'm just talking in front of a camera extemporaneously, it helps me to focus my thoughts. If I'm doing one of my Star Trek retro reviews, those are kind of informally in two parts. Those always start with a plot summary, which is written to be funny, but also to reasonably accurately summarize the plot. And then comes the critique. So it's kind of first one and then the other. And they all follow that format. And in terms of the plot summary and knowing what to leave out and what to leave in, I just kind of play that by ear. And a lot of it depends on what I have jokes for. Because again, those plot summaries for the Star Trek reviews are intended to be funny. So if I'm watching the episode and I have a joke for something, I make sure that gets into the summary so I can make my joke. And if there's stuff that I need to mention in order for the story I'm recapping to make sense, especially if I'm going to make a point about that point in the story later in my review, I try to make sure that that's in there as well. But it really depends on what the review is, what I'm reviewing, what my intention with the review is. Yeah, but I think that basically answers the question. But yeah, it really depends on what I'm reviewing and what my aim with the review is. Wolfie Basach. Hi, Steve. A while ago, at the end of a busy day, I retired to the warm sanctuary of bed. I began to think with fondness about some of the women who've blessed my life from time to time, and it suddenly occurred to me that, and I wasn't strangling the trouser rat, by the way, and it suddenly occurred to me that just over 50% of them had actually been involved with someone before I came on the scene. I don't know how all this has managed to come about, but in my defense, there were separations already undergoing, and in most cases, a lack of knowledge on my part. But even so, without being aware of it and with genuine alarm, I've got all the traits of a classic soap opera villain. So my question is, are you the sort of man a fella can trust with his missus? A bloke whose intentions are strictly honorable? The kind of man of which a bride's father can say, I've not lost a daughter but gained a son? Or are you just a low-down, dirty, stinking love rat like I apparently am? The second one. It depends on the situation. It depends on the people involved and how close I am to one or both of them and how invested I am personally in the pre-existing relationship, and obviously, first and foremost, whether or not there is actual interest between myself and one of the involved parties. But if all other factors are in place, I mean, I will say if I liked somebody and they liked me and they were involved with somebody else and they were willing to throw that relationship out the window to be with me, I would have no problem with that whatsoever. And I would feel no guilt about it at all, because them's the breaks. Sorry about your luck, other person. All's fair in love and war. Like, I'm not I would feel bad if it was like a situation where like I broke up a family, if there were like little kids involved, like that's a different situation. But if it's just like somebody's with somebody else and then they meet me and they decide they want to be with me instead and I like them too, okay, I have no problem with that whatsoever. Like respecting your relationship when you don't want to even be in it anymore, or when your partner doesn't want to be in it anymore, that is not my responsibility, you know? So no, in that sense, I am not the honorable party. You know, if someone has a boyfriend or a husband and they decide that they like me better and I like them as well, and I think there's a future there or just something worth pursuing, I am not going to say, we can't do this. You have a boyfriend. To hell with your boyfriend. Like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That's just how I feel about it. I don't fucking care about him. Again, unless he's like a good friend of mine and I wouldn't want to hurt him. If the boyfriend or the husband or whoever is a stranger to me, well, he can go to hell. Who gives a shit about him? It's not my job. He's not my responsibility. He's not my concern. The only caveat would be that I would not want to involve myself in a situation where I was going to end up having to take a lot of shit. Right? Like if I'm just going to be sticking my toe, if I'm going to be kicking a bee's nest by getting involved in this, then no, I want nothing to do with it. But it's out of respect for myself and out of my own desire not to involve myself in bullshit, not because I hold, some other person's relationship sacred. So, again, there are a lot of different factors that could possibly be at play, but generally speaking, of the two options given me, low down, dirty, stinking love rat is probably the closest. I got that dog in me. Staring down the barrel of a 45th birthday, Joe McClory. Despite the name reference, I am doing well, safer and more secure than I have ever been in my life. Well, that is good to hear, my friend. I miss and now the good news. Not that I'm asking you to bring it back or anything, but in this time of things being torn apart, I need something like it. It pains my heart to find out that mice were being engineered to be better human analogs for testing by the people that think it is a waste of money and will shut down programs like it. Hearing there were tests to quantify the effects of alcoholism on PTSD by people who think it was just spraying rats with urine. Even Rebecca Watson's channel has been little more than bad news about what Trump is doing to the public sector. Is there any place you go for news of people doing good and not just people fighting the bad? Do you think that when things are bad, it is more, less, or equally important to showcase that the builders instead of the people tearing things down? Can you help me? As Fred Rogers would say, look for the helpers. There's a website, I think it's Good News Network. That's a decent resource for uplifting and positive news, and it does tend to skew toward like actual good news, like scientific breakthroughs and things like that, as opposed to, man reunited with dog type stuff, which is fine. Everybody loves a good, man reunited with dog story, but it doesn't necessarily give you reason to be optimistic about the state of the future, So, but yeah, it tends to feature more substantive, positive, optimistic stories. So I would recommend you to check that out if you haven't heard of that already. I believe it's called Good News Network. If you just Google that, you should find it. And there's other websites like that as well that try to aggregate, positive or uplifting or exciting stories. And for me personally, it doesn't really make a difference. For me personally, I'm either working on something or I'm not working and watching a movie or watching a TV show. And I don't usually, like, since I stopped doing the And Now the Good News show, which has been a long time now, I don't usually feel the need, like for my own peace of mind, to go out and search for good news stories. I appreciate the ones that I find. I appreciate the ones that sort of, come across my notice just naturally throughout the day. But whether times are good or bad, I personally don't feel the need to seek that kind of thing out. I usually have my mind on other stuff. But I do think Good News Network is a pretty good resource for that kind of thing. Seth Jones, hey, Steve and friends, we appear to be entering a time in the U.S. where many people will be struggling. We are fortunate enough to be able to assist those financially in our close friends and family group. However, those friends are resistant to accepting the help from us, even though it comes with no strings attached. Any ideas on how we can help those in need without making them feel bad about it? I mean, I think it's all in the approach, like I feel like you need to, as best as you can, convince them that, you're not taking pity on them and you don't think any less of them because they need help. Like it's a situation that anybody could find themselves in, especially in these times and under these circumstances. And, you're helping them because you have the opportunity to help and they need the help. And you care about them and you want them to be okay. And that's it. And hopefully that's enough. I mean, I guess you can resort to just, like leaving a basket of money on their front porch or just sending them checks anonymously in the mail or something. Like if they really are that hard-headed about it and you really are that determined to help them, I mean, I guess there are nefarious ways to kind of get the money into their hands without giving them a chance to refuse it. But I mean, the main thing is just to let them know that you're there for them, that you're a resource that they can call upon. And also you need to accept that there may be a point where you just have to let it be. Like if you offer them help again and again, and you try to talk them into accepting your help, and you try to convince them that they have nothing to fear and nothing to be embarrassed about, and that you're not going to hold this over their head, and that you're not going to try to get them to pay you back, or, you're not going to use this against them in any way. You just want to help them because they're in need, and that's it. Once you have made that case, if they still refuse to accept your help at a certain point, you just have to let it go. Let them know that you're there, that the offer hasn't been taken off the table. Like you're, as long as you're able to help, you're willing to help. And if they need to call on you, that they can please do that. But if they are dead set on refusing to accept your help at a certain point, you just have to say, well, okay, I think you're making a mistake. But it's your life, and I'll be here if you change your mind. Siamak, who almost sent in a question earlier in the week, but no, procrastination got me. Greetings, Steve. I hope you're well today. I will admit I'm staring down the clock and have yet to formulate a question, but I will have my question. Do not doubt me, sir. I shall not be denied. So, yeah, in good news, I've recently reconnected with a couple who were friends of my ex-wife who I'd lost in the divorce. It's been great reconnecting, and now I have another protest buddy beside my girlfriend. Also, one of the couple actually works for the EPA, and his job is at Musk risk. Protect the EPA. Have you had any success recently in the community building sphere? See a question. Aha. No, I haven't, but in my defense, I have not been trying. So, I wouldn't expect to have had any success because I haven't really been out. I haven't really been reaching out to anyone. So no, I haven't. But I'm really glad that you have someone else to go to protests to. That's awesome. And I'm glad that I'm glad for that situation. And I really, really hope that your friend doesn't get fired from their very important job with the EPA because some dipshit rich guy decided that their job wasn't important enough. What the fuck? JDC has definitely never texted his boss, "Good morning, sweetie." Good, because that would be really embarrassing if you had. Hey, Steve, no politics question today from me. Speaking of absolute train wrecks, have you been watching The White Lotus? I think we could all use a vacation. Cheers. I have never watched The White Lotus. I've heard wonderful things about it. I've heard that it's a brilliant show. I have not been avoiding it on purpose. I expect if I ever do get time to watch it, I will probably enjoy it. I just haven't watched it mainly because I just don't have time. I have been watching The Righteous Gemstones. Danny McBride is someone that I always make time for. I'm a huge Danny McBride fan. I've seen all of his shows and most of his movies. I think he's one of the funniest people in the world. He's unfailingly hilarious to me. And I am a huge fan of The Righteous Gemstones. And I have been watching that and enjoying its current and final season, which is, being released right now. So I am watching The Righteous Gemstones, but I am not, unfortunately, watching The White Lotus. But I'm glad that you're watching it and I'm glad you're enjoying it. And I'm sure I'll get around to it at some point. Becky, Hi, Steve. Do you think there's utility in being registered as a Democrat? We have open primaries in California, so I just vote for whichever Dem is furthest to the left. But I've wondered if it makes a difference for progressives and leftists to be included as party members instead of just voters who generally vote for Democrats. Well, I mean, I would say yes. I would say it is a very good idea for people to not only vote to support the Democrats in elections, but also to register with the party, because it's kind of difficult for leftists and progressives to take over the party eventually if they don't do that. And that is something that I believe very strongly should be a goal of the progressive movement, is to take over the Democratic Party and to leverage its existing political clout, and hopefully greatly enlarge that political clout by bringing in a lot of people who have been disaffected by politics in the United States for the last many years. And like I say, it's really difficult to do that if progressives don't actually become members of the party. So I think there is definitely utility in doing that. And I encourage people to do that, whether your state has an open primary system or not. Kara the Tolkien Nerd. Hi, Steve. I have so many questions that there just isn't time within the 1,000-word limit to ask them all. So on to my question for tonight. Having recently rewatched Star Trek TAS and having seen your review of The Magics of Magus 2, I wondered which animated episodes you liked the most and which ones you thought weren't very good. I'll be honest, my favorite episode is still Yesteryear, for so many reasons, chief among them being that it deals with a sensitive subject, the death of a beloved pet, and treats the viewer as a sensible, intelligent being. I believe that DC Fontana was also mainly responsible for this episode, despite the studio Filmation, I believe, being concerned that it might upset some of the younger viewers. So I'd like to hear your thoughts, Kara. Well, yeah, Yesteryear is my favorite episode of the animated series, too. I think it's the best episode. It's a great episode. DC Fontana did write that episode. Yeah, for all the reasons you stated. It's a great episode, and it's my favorite. My least favorite of the animated series, it's tough because even the shitty ones are fun, you know. I haven't watched it for a very long time, but I remember being relatively unimpressed by the ambergris element, which is the episode where I think it's Kirk and Spock. They visit a planet that is submerged, like the civilization is underwater, and they are converted into like mer people. Like they take a substance that allows them to breathe under the water, and they kind of become Aquamen. And again, like as is the case with most animated series episodes, even if it's not that great, it's still kind of fun because it's just so goofy and off the wall. But I remember, and again, I haven't watched it for a while. If I watch it again soon, I may have a different response to it. But I remember not liking it as much as the other animated episodes. So I will provisionally say, as far as least favorite, I will provisionally say the ambergris element. But favorite, I agree with you. It's definitely Yesteryear. Dana the Jubilant. My freshman just started reading Fahrenheit 451. The first sentence has just 6 words. The second, 15. The third, 52, Steve. You and I could sail right through. My students? And with a huge stigma attached to being marginally literate, they'd rather not try than risk exposing their lack of skill. Sound like someone else? Going wildly off script or ignoring the text completely? Minimal intonation when reading? Holding a book upside down? Teachers might be reluctant to point out weak skill in a child with wealthy, probably demanding parents. By the time he's old enough to realize it himself, peer influence is high and he'd rather hide than get help. Trump has been hiding ever since, desperate to prove his worth, terrified people will find out. His sycophants idolize him, perhaps emphasizing that he's really a weak, sad, scared old man who would shatter their altar, perhaps even demolish the temple entirely. Know anyone with a platform? I mean, I agree with you, and I think this is a really good observation about Trump, that he is at best obviously a very, very, very poor reader, if not, in some stage or another of outright illiteracy. I do think that is a big part of who he is, and the fact that he has been able to rise to the heights that he has risen while being such a poor reader and having such poor verbal skills generally, you know, it tells you a lot about him and a lot about the reasons why he is able to achieve the successes he has achieved. It certainly isn't because he has any special uh, skills or any extraordinary communication abilities, because he obviously doesn't. But I think the thing is, you know, you say his sycophants idolize him. I mean, that's the point. Whether they realize that Trump is a bad reader or not, I don't think they care. Like, if someone were to point out the fact that Trump couldn't read, if someone were to somehow confront Donald Trump on TV, you know, and prove that he's a bad reader, I don't think it would make any difference to his fans. They don't care. They don't give a shit. They would probably default to, oh, they're picking on him. You know, they're oblivious to all the times he picks on people. But if anybody does anything remotely challenging to him or puts him on his back foot, oh, they're picking on him. They're bullying Trump. Why don't they leave him alone? I thought they were against bullying. Like, they'll do that shit. So yeah, I mean, it might be fun to make a video about, you know, to point out the fact that Donald Trump is a really shitty reader. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it will make any difference to his sycophants. Second to last question from Russell. Hey, Steve, we once talked about the Angel finale, and I got your opinions on it as such. And to those I have chatted with on this issue, seems like that is the status quo. My, for lack of a better word, issue, again, it's kind of harsh, is the fact they were fighting a no-win fight. Take the Buffy finale, for example. All potentials all become slayers. So anytime a new potential is born, they are born as a slayer, which means if Buffy or Faith died at this point, the battle does continue. Whereas if all of Team Angel is killed off, who is left to fight the good fight? My favorite season, by the way, of Angel is season 2, where he ponders this very issue and goes dark again, lack of a better term, but you get my meaning. As someone who does political content often, do you ever feel like this? Like it's pointless? If so, how do you stay on track? I felt like this when Biden was running, and I was like at that point, I am not going to vote. My mind only changed after we had Harris running. See you shortly. The fact that it's a hopeless battle is what I like about the last episode of Angel. Like, I mean, you take that as a point against it, as you take it as a criticism that if Team Angel dies, then that's the end of the fight. And, you know, and they're greatly outnumbered, and the fight looks hopeless for them at that moment. But that's what I like about it. Like, that's what makes it bittersweet. That's what makes them heroic, that they continue to fight against overwhelming odds in a battle that they may very well lose. Like, that's what makes it good. That's what makes it memorable. That's what I love about it. And as for, do I ever feel like it's pointless? Do I ever feel like it's an unwinnable fight? Yes and no. I mean, I don't get discouraged because I think I have a pretty good sense of perspective of my place in all of this. I have never felt like it was my responsibility to fix things. I have never felt like I ever had the power individually to fix things or even to make things all that much better. My abilities, my gifts, to the extent that I have them, paltry though they are best put to use doing shit like this. You know, I can talk, I can write, I can be entertaining and engaging on camera, in some people's opinion. That's really the extent of my talents. So I use them in what I have determined is the most productive way. And I do what I can do. And that is enough for me, because it has to be. And I think I do think I make a positive impact, but I think it's a very small impact. But I'm okay with that because I know I'm not the only one making that impact. There are thousands, millions of other people making tiny little impacts and doing what they can to nudge things in the right way. And hopefully and historically, that all tends to add up and result in progress eventually, often after very, very terrifying setbacks. But you know, things eventually move forward, and and some of it is because of, you know, people who are able to make big change in relatively short times, but mostly it's because of people who are willing and able to make little changes and just kind of push things ahead. And I see myself as one of those. So it is a big job, and it is a never-ending battle, to borrow a phrase from Superman, and not just talk about Angel and Buffy, but that's how I see my role in it. So I don't ever really get discouraged, and I don't ever really feel like I'm not doing enough, because I recognize that I, as an individual, am not responsible for fixing everything or for making everything better. It's my responsibility to contribute in a positive way. And I try to do that. Yeah, there you go. And final question from Steve. Who do you think you are? At the moment, I think I am the guy hosting this live stream. And I am correct. That's it for the patron and member questions. Now, I will turn my attention to the live chat momentarily, but first, as regular viewers of the live stream know, before I turn my attention to the live chat for the rest of the show, it is time to premiere a brand new Stuffy and Friends short. This is a short little Stuffy and Friends skip that will go live tomorrow on this YouTube channel as a standalone YouTube short. But because you are watching this show right now live, you get to see the brand new Stuffy and Friends short before anybody else. So please do now enjoy this brand new Stuffy and Friends short.
What's Germany's deal anyway?
I don't know. What is America's deal?
Ha! He gotcha. Did you just get a text? Rude.
Oh no, not again.
What is it?
I keep getting accidentally added to group chats of Trump administration officials. I think my number must be close to someone else's. I've had to leave 3 of them this week. Give me a second to make it 4.
Whoa, wait. You're going to just leave a top secret government group chat?
I know what you're thinking, but it's not top secret. They never even talk about anything interesting or useful.
Aw, man. You need to get on that war plans group chat, which apparently isn't that difficult to do.
It's not. When I was vice president, I would add in random people just to see if anyone would notice.
Well, the ones I've been added to are just people who work in the White House trashing each other behind their backs.
Give me the phone. Aw, this one's not even that. No trash talk, no gossip. The bowling alley space is a possibility. Putting it in the basement creates ventilation issues? ? Oh, shit, you can't tell who anyone is because no one is in your contacts, are they?
No, none of the officials in the Trump administration are in my contacts. Not since I ghosted Stephen Miller. I'm kidding.
What are the anonymous flunkies of evil discussing?
Aye, what are they plotting to do at the bowling alley?
From what I can tell, they're trying to figure out the best place to put a McDonald's franchise in the White House.
They want to put a bloody McDonald's in the White House bowling alley? What are those daft bastards playing at? With no bowling alley, where else in the White House are you supposed to bash people with bowling pins?
Are the rest of the floors carpeted?
Here, someone else is texting you.
Oh, come on. It's a private text from someone in the group chat. POTUS is hungry, go to McD's and pick up his usual.
They must think you're J.D. Vance.
Ta-da! Yeah, and as someone, Philip Kehoe, yes, Stuffy gets topical. Yeah, as you can tell, I just wrote that one this week. Aha! See, Mac, I thought the direction this was going was meth. Michael Hanline has a question. It says, follow up to my question, what the fuck is up with GOP politicians and their seeming pride and abusing their dogs? I know, right? Yeah, I what's up is that they're all just really shitty people. Like, I think it's just as simple as that. They're just really shitty people. By the way, I want to acknowledge there wasn't a question attached to it, but Debbie Bannister did throw in a super chat a little while ago. I want to acknowledge that. Thank you, Debbie, very, very much. And then Damian Wilson just dropped a member message. Thank you very much, Damian, for being a member. Says, my dream captain casting is CCH Pounder as a fan of The Shield. I believe she would have killed it. Who is your dream captain casting? CCH Pounder would be really good. I assume you mean Star Trek captain. CCH Pounder would be great, actually. I always wanted, not always, but in recent years when I've sort of mused about who I would love to cast as like a Star Trek captain if I were doing a show, Henry Simmons, who was a detective on NYPD Blue in like the final 4 or 5 seasons of that show, and then was also Mac on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Just a fantastic actor and like a big, imposing guy. So it would be a kind of a slightly different physical type than we've seen from Star Trek captains before. But yeah, he would be at the top of my list as someone I would love to see cast as a Star Trek captain. Air One Fire says, so to clarify, if she really liked you, but her husband was Jake LaMotta, you wouldn't go for it. Yeah, exactly. I'm not getting involved in that. I'm not doing anything that I have a reasonable expectation is going to get my fucking ass kicked. Yes, absolutely. John Burns says, 1023, kidnappings in Gaza, Dems official position. I'm going to say against. I think Dems are against kidnappings, be they in Gaza or anywhere else. Darylette says, okay, Steve, I survived Nixon. How many states have you been to? And how many ever went for Trump? I've been to 16 states, and only Illinois and New York State went them all 3 times. I mean, I've been to, let me see. I've been to every state on the East Coast from New York south, but I haven't been north of New York. And I haven't been west of, like, Maryland, Virginia, etc. And I think most of those are, I mean, Pennsylvania has become a swing state. New York almost always goes for the Democrat. Maryland always goes for the Democrat. The rest of them are either swing states or solid red states. So Isaiah says, if you let me, could I share some corridor concept art of my starship on the Hangout Sunday? Absolutely. I would love that. And I think most of us who are usually in the Hangout would love to see that too, as well as would anybody watching. Yes, please feel free to do that. Tasby12 says, what is that shirt you're wearing? I ask because it is based on the flag of Chicago. So I was wondering what or who it is for. It is indeed based on the flag of Chicago, and it is the t-shirt of CM Punk, Chicago's favorite son, the Second City Saint, which is, he's a proud son of Chicago. And of course it is based on the Chicago flag, which I am not a son of Chicago. I've never even been to Chicago, but I love the Chicago flag. It's one of the best. It's not as good as the Maryland flag, but it's a really, really awesome flag. So yes, CM Punk, Chicago's own. Simon Moody said, when you made the crack about the length of the Lord of the Rings films endings in a recent Star Trek video, were you thinking of Kara as you wrote that in the script? No, and no offense to Kara. I mean, I wasn't thinking of her specifically. The Lord of the Rings is an incredibly popular thing. Like Tolkien, much to my dismay, Tolkien is an immensely popular and beloved writer, and I have known many people in my life who were far greater fans of the writing of Tolkien and of those films in particular than I am. So I am well acquainted with the amount of love those movies receive, and having watched them, I am also all too well acquainted with how fucking endless they are. Kirok with a super chat, thank you very much, says, I wanted to ask, are you familiar with the Angel quote, if nothing we do matters, then all that matters is what we do? If so, what do you think of that quote? I am familiar with that quote, and I think that's a great quote. I love that quote. I also love, there's another quote, and it resonates with me, even though I do not have children and do not want children, but there is a line when Darla is pregnant with Angel's child, and Angel and Darla are talking about it, and Darla says, why would anybody want to bring a child into this horrible world? And Angel's response is, to make it better, maybe. And I thought that was a wonderful line. puts a little bit of pressure on the kid. I'm not sure if it's necessarily the best attitude to have, of a parent towards an unborn child. You're kind of putting some stuff on the baby's shoulders that the baby didn't ask for. But as a line and a drama, and just as an idea and as a response to that question, which a lot of people have asked, why would anybody want to bring a child into this world? Like, that's a question a lot of people ask. That's a pretty good answer, maybe to make it better, or to try to anyway. So I like the line you brought up, and I like that line too. Damian Williams says, thinking about the Spider-Man 3 thing, I think of it like Godfather 3. It's good, but looks like shit in comparison to the other two. I don't know if I can go that far with you on Godfather 3. I do think Godfather 3 is pretty much a bad movie. I'm not comfortable saying Spider-Man 3 is a bad movie. It's just a very flawed movie that is too long and has too much going on. But I think Godfather 3 is just an outright bad movie. Joe McClory says Schumer might be against, speaking of kidnappings, Schumer might be against it, but not before reminding us about October 7th. Yeah, that's the thing. It's you have to, no matter how many times you have condemned Hamas in the past, you always have to condemn Hamas first before criticizing anything that Israel has done. Yeah. Empire Jeff with a super chat. Thank you very much. Says, what is your favorite X-Files episode? Home with the killer inbred hillbillies episode. I love that episode. I also really, really like Jose Chung's From Outer Space. And I really, really like an episode that Dana reminded me of recently, because she told me that she showed this episode to her monstrous lit class in school, the Postmodern Prometheus, which is a really, really cool episode. But yeah, I think my absolute favorite is Home. Really nice use of Johnny Mathis in that episode. Kirok says, on to my Star Trek question. Why wouldn't it be Kevin instead of Rashawn? Rashawn lives there forever and Kevin was the outsider. It makes sense he was the one who had survived. Rashawn lived there. No, they both came there together. They met on Earth and then they moved to the colony together. So Rashawn wasn't from there. Neither one of them was from there. They had both moved there as colonists. Carlisle the Cinephile with a super chat. Thank you very much. Says, how can anyone think Spider-Man 3 is bad when it contains the absolute icon that is Bully Maguire? Exactly. That is good. Like that's one of those things where I started to like, it was really, really popular on the internet for a long time to shit on that movie, and particularly to shit on that segment, right? Where Peter goes bad. People talked about how cringe it was. And I'm like, I'm sorry. I am getting off this boat. I think that is awesome. Like, I think it is fucking awesome. I think it is exactly what it needs to be. You're free not to like it. That's fine. But I am not there with you. CMAC, no sidebar. Thank you. Thank you. See, I said earlier, I am the host of this live stream, but it doesn't mean I'm very good at it, even though this is episode 185 of this live stream. I'll figure it out one of these days. And Geek reminded me of that too. Thank you. Seth Jones says, one of my former YouTube channels that I enjoy seems to have went to the political dark side. It's sad when your heroes fall. Have any of your heroes taken a fall that disappointed you? Oh God, yes. A lot of people in the atheist community disappointed me. I won't name any names because there are too many, but yes, absolutely. Plasma Burn Depth says, glad to see you are well. Been a long month for me. My father passed away 3/1, suddenly choked to death on food, and we were estranged. Didn't know where he was for the last 10 years. Emotions. Well, I'm very sorry to hear that. I'm glad you're here. It's good to see you too, but my condolences. I'm really sorry to hear that. Damn. Joe says, oh, you don't think Connor handled the stress okay? Referring to Angel's son. Yeah, I feel like he maybe could have handled it better. He had a kind of He had kind of a rough go there, didn't he? Poor Connor. Carlisle with another super chat. Thank you very much. Says, me to random hater. Oh, you think Spider-Man 3 is bad? I missed the part where that's my problem. That's it. That's how you deal with a Spider-Man 3 hater. 255 AD says, what do you think people should do if the next election is stolen? I was asking you what you think should be done, not just what others I have no idea. I don't know what I'll do. Like, I don't know. Yeah, that's the honest answer. I don't know. Justin J.M. Higner says, I'm afraid I'm not familiar with any of the animated series Star Trek. It's the only Star Trek series I have never seen much of at all. Well, I mean, the good news is you can catch up on it pretty quick. The Star Trek, the animated series, referring, of course, to the original one from the 70s, not Lower Decks or Prodigy, one of, the more recent animated Star Treks. But the Star Trek, the animated series, it's only 22 episodes. And the episodes are half an hour. So you can catch up on it pretty quick if you want. And yeah, I mean, a few of them are genuinely really, really good. And most of the rest are varying degrees of good or bad, but are almost always fun. So there you go. Oh, Isaiah, David Silverman. Yeah, that's definitely one of a person. Yeah, Sam Harris, that's another one, sure. Of people who've disappointed me in the on the atheist front. Yeah, definitely. Kirok, yes, this Sunday is the hangout. Yes, absolutely. Aaron Son X says, that's wild. Those are the X-Files episodes I hate. All are overrated, and the postmodern Prometheus has always been very problematic to me. Well, I mean, I haven't watched it for a while, so I can't recall what would be problematic about it. I mean, I'll just take your word for that. But yeah, I love all of those episodes. I love those episodes. Almost all of my favorite X-Files episodes are the standalone ones, the ones that have little or nothing to do with the myth arc, the alien invasion stuff. I mean, some of that is good, but generally speaking, those are not the episodes that I really remember, and those are not the episodes that I think represent the show at its best. Yeah. Carlisle with a super chat. Thank you again, my friend. How do you feel about all the big Marvel casting announcements? I'm honestly feeling so burnt out on the MCU that I'm finding it hard to care. I mean, I'm not super invested in the cast, to be honest. I mean, I don't have any bad feelings about it. I think it's nice to see people excited about it. But like, I want to see the movie. I literally only care if the movie is good. Like, if the movie had 2 characters in it and it was a great movie, I would be thrilled. I don't care who's in the movie. I care if the movie is good. So, it's nice that they announced this incredible cast, and, they did like this 5-hour long live stream where they brought out director's chairs with everybody's name. Like, it was a nice publicity stunt, and it seems to have gone over relatively well and gotten a lot of attention, which was what they wanted. And it's a very impressive cast list. But it needs to be a good movie. Actually, 2 good movies, because it's Avengers. They're doing the Infinity War Endgame thing again, where the first one is Doomsday, and then the second one is Secret War. So, it has to be good movies. That's all. That is all I care about. I do not care who's in it. I care if it's a good movie. Kirog with a super chat, thank you very much, says, bear in mind Filmation did the TAS, but they also gave us He-Man and She-Ra, so take that. Well, yeah, I have no problem with Filmation. I have a real soft spot for Filmation. And even though, I mean, I kind of admire what they're able to do, given how small their budgets were. Like, given what they had to work with, like some of what they were able to accomplish in Star Trek and in He-Man and She-Ra and the many other shows that they produced in the 70s and 80s. is kind of impressive. So, I mean, I have a really big soft spot for Filmation. Daryl Lett says, okay, Steve, thanks for the first answer. Some time ago, YouTube content provider Mr. Beat had on the guy who mapped 100 states with equal population out of the U.S. Good idea or not? No, bad idea. Who cares if the states have equal population? I don't really see why that matters. Oh, and Kirak says, I will defend Connor to no end. Not against me, buddy. I have no problem with Connor. I like Connor. Oh, CMAC, Richard Dawkins. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. PSCW PLB says, a shame there's no option to not listen to the soundtrack of TAS. Oh, I like the soundtrack. I love the music to the animated series. Yeah, it's repetitive. I mean, it's the same few music cues over and over again, but I like it. It's got its certain charm, you know? The Darth Eddie says, my hometown was depicted in the Bruce Campbell X-Files episode, so at least we have that claim to fame. You know, my hometown was depicted in an episode of Millennium, the somewhat short-lived spinoff of the X-Files, which had a really, really great first season, an absolutely fucking terrible second season, and a third season that was better than the second season, but by then it didn't really matter because the show was fucked. But no, there was an episode in the first season of Millennium. I can't remember which one it was, but in the first scene of the episode, the cold open, there was a title, like a lower third, that identified, you know, the location, and it was Hagerstown, Maryland, which is my hometown. But I could tell that it wasn't actually filmed in Hagerstown, because it took place at a Piggly Wiggly grocery store, which we do not have any of those in Hagerstown. The Piggly Wiggly is not present in this region of the country at all. So even though it was depicted as being Hagerstown in the show, I knew it was not actually shot there. But yes, so my hometown it's not as cool as having your hometown depicted in not only an X-Files episode, but an X-Files episode that guest starred Bruce Campbell, but it's something. I had my hometown depicted in an episode of Millennium. Aaron Son X says, moving on, a DS9 question. I think Mila was Garrick's mother. What do you think? In my mind, that would explain why he was so deeply attached to her. Simply being Tane's housekeeper wouldn't explain it. I mean, I think there are hints of that. Now, I do think I don't think she has to be Garrick's mother. I mean, you say she was just Tane's housekeeper. Whether or not she was his biological mother, she was definitely a mother figure to him. So I think that's really all you need. I mean, people can be attached to people in a parent-child kind of way without that person actually being their biological parent or even their legal parent. So I don't think she has to be his biological mother, but I do think that we are kind of led in that direction. Yeah. Super chat from Carlisle. I keep having to resist the urge to shout "what" whenever I hear you all mention Angel Connor, since that's my real first name. Sorry. Member message from Don Quixote. Hope everyone has a great weekend. Well, thank you, my friend. Same to you. I mean, I don't want to speak for everybody, but but I'll say, I hope you have a good weekend. Let me see. True55AD says, was the episode about stuffed animals coming to life? I don't remember. Joe McClure says, have you seen any of Steve Hofstadter's comedy? Nice to see comics that are expressly progressive. I've seen a little. Yeah, I haven't seen a ton, but I've seen a little, and I've liked what I've seen. He seems like a good dude and a funny dude. So yeah, and I agree. It's always good to see unapologetically progressive stand-up comics. The Darth Eddie says, I love how the X-Files with My City got our local police officer uniforms totally wrong, but that's part of the charm of the episode. They just did their own thing. Yeah, I mean, same thing with like the, what I was saying about the Piggly Wiggly. Like, I don't really care. Like, I didn't expect them to send like a crew to Hagerstown to film on location. That's ridiculous. It's just kind of cool that somebody said, hey, let's set this scene in Hagerstown, Chris McGough says, can you deny that you aren't half curious what the full-length Klingon K-pop album might sound like? No, I like that. I thought the Klingon K-pop musical scene in the musical episode was hilarious. I mean, so I would at least listen to it once. I don't know if I would feel the need to listen to it ever again, but I would at least check it out. Yeah, because I thought that scene was hilarious. I love that. Stephen G. Clenardo, the super chat. Thank you, my friend. Says, I know you don't care for follow-up episodes, but what would you think of Strange New Worlds doing Those Who Roll Away from Omelas in their beep chair? I would only be in favor of it if that was the title. If that was the title, I would demand it. I would demand it. If I heard that there was a pitch for a season of Strange New Worlds that included an episode titled The Ones Who Roll Away from Omelas in Their Beep Chair, and I heard that they weren't going to make that episode with that title, I would start a fucking John and Bijo Trimble style letter writing campaign to force them to make that episode with that title. Tumbles One says, hey, love the content, keep up the awesome work. Thank you very much. 255 AD says, if she was his mother, why would he lie about it? He's Garrick. Like, question answered. Why would he lie? He's Garrick. I agree, Carlisle. Carlisle says, nearly a decade of me being a follower and frequent contributor to your Q&As, and we're still learning stuff about each other. It's nice. It is. I agree. Oh, Chris, I pronounced it correctly. Good. I was hoping I did. You know who I can thank for that is Michael Gough, the great English actor who starred in Hammer horror films and then went on to play Alfred in the Tim Burton, Joel Schumacher Batman movies. That's how I learned to pronounce Gough. So I assumed it was similar. I'm glad I was right. Okay, Philip Kehoe says, did anyone else mix up Lance Henriksen and Peter Weller? I never have, but I can understand why people would. Yes. The way you tell them apart is that Peter Weller was RoboCop and Lance Henriksen was one of the Mercury astronauts in The Right Stuff. That's how you tell them apart. All right, Kirok with a super chat, and then I'm going to start wrapping things up. Kirok says, Steve, one-off question. How do you deal with them damn Bible thumpers when you check your mail? I get so sick of them. I have never encountered Bible thumpers when checking my mail. The only time I ever encountered a Bible thumper when I was like sort of out in the wild, and it wasn't just like somebody leaving a tract somewhere, but it was like an actual person like in my way trying to get my attention. It was when I was in high school and I was on my way home, and there was someone who had staked out a spot right off campus in front of my high school. So he was technically no longer on school property. And he was just handing out little Bibles, like little pocket New Testaments. And he tried to talk to me, but I just walked right past him and I grabbed the Bible he was holding out to me and said, thank you. And I just kept going. And I still have that Bible somewhere. Okay, Jubilee Helix says, what's everyone reading? Thanks for the super chat. I'm not currently reading anything, but everybody in the chat is welcome to throw in their, whatever they're reading. Stephen G. Clenard says, would you want to watch a docudrama about early Star Trek fandom? I'd write it from the TV exec's point of view and call it The Trouble with Trimbles. Again, for the title alone, I would give it a chance. Yes, absolutely. All right, 255 AD, I'll get to your question in a second when I go through and round up the final questions. But first, it's time to round up this show. So thank you all so much for being here, for joining me, for asking questions, for leaving comments in the chat. I appreciate it. I appreciate the audience and the attention. If you enjoy the work that I do here on YouTube and you are not currently a supporter, but you would like to be, and to help me continue to do this, you can do so by becoming a patron by going to patreon.com/Steve Shives, or by becoming a channel member by clicking on the join button right here on the YouTube page. Either way, if you become a patron at any level of support or you become a member at any level of support, one of the perks that you unlock is you get to submit questions ahead of time for these Ask Away live streams, which are the questions that I answer in the first great big chunk of the show. So if that is of interest to you, or if you just, want to help me continue to make videos and produce the channel, patreon.com/Steve Shives, or click the join button. Support in any amount from $1 a month on up is very valuable and incredibly appreciated. And I could not do this without my patrons and my channel members. So thank you all who are currently patrons and channel members, and thank all of you who are considering it and may become one in the near future. Also, don't forget, in addition to the YouTube thing, I'm on a couple of podcasts. There is the Late Seating podcast, which is a movie review podcast that I do alongside the great Jason Harding, my very best friend in the whole world, who we were talking about a little earlier in reference to the Star Trek reviews we do together. Late Seating is a movie review podcast where Jason and I take a look at classic films and give them a fresh look and a fresh review and decide whether or not they deserve their reputations, be that reputation good or bad. Our new episode, our most recent episode of Late Seating, is our review chosen by the patrons of our podcast of the classic 2010 horror comedy Tucker and Dale versus Evil, a favorite of both Jason and myself. So you can listen to us have a laugh along with that really funny, really good movie and appreciate it. And in addition to Late Seating, I'm also a cast member on the Ensign's Log, which is a Star Trek themed improv comedy podcast that I'm on alongside Jason and also Amanda Billings. And the three of us play characters who currently are living on Deep Space Nine during the events of that series. And the actual events of the series kind of take place in the background of our show, while our characters are making our own trouble and getting involved in our own adventures. And it's a really fun show to do. It's a really funny show to listen to. If you appreciate Star Trek and you appreciate comedic Star Trek, and especially comedy that's kind of making fun of Star Trek, I would invite you to check out the Ensign's Log. I think you will really enjoy it, and you have a whole bunch of episodes to catch up on if you have not listened before. So it could be your next podcast binge, if you like. But links to both shows, to Late Seating and to Ensign's Log, are in the video description. And of course, do not forget that our friend Some Random Geek has put together a collection of links to help friends of ours who need a helping hand. He shared a bunch of those links in the chat earlier. But you can also go to charitylinks.page to find all of the links in one place. These are links to PayPal accounts or GoFundMes or other crowdfunding sites and various other financial resources for people who need a helping hand, who need a little extra cash this month, who need help getting the bills paid, putting food on the table. So if you are feeling charitable, and if you have some extra money to spare and you would like to put it toward a good cause and help somebody out, please consider doing so and making use of the links to help out our friends at charitylinks.page. Well, that is it, except for some final questions. So let me go back and see. Let me see. 255 AD said, did you think the creature designs and evolution were good even if everything else about the film sucked? Yes. Yes, I actually thought the creature designs were maybe the best, or at least the most creative part of it. Absolutely. CMX says, seriously, the spelling of McLeod became very awkward for me during an interaction around 30 years old. McLeod? Oh, the Darth Eddie. Yes, Michael Goff is the kidnapped scientist in Top Secret. Absolutely. Yes, absolutely right. Great movie. Really funny movie. Serrano Geek says, what is everyone's favorite Girl Scout cookie? Mine is the coconut Samoas or caramel delights. Ooh, Thin Mints. I'm a sucker for chocolate and mint. I think that's got to be my favorite. Or no, grasshoppers. Grasshoppers. Those are the chocolate ones. The chocolate mint ones, right? Those are the Girl Scout cookies, and not Thin Mints. Grasshoppers. Yeah, those are my favorite. Anyway, okay, one last question from 255 AD. Did you think the creature designs and evolution were good, even if everything about the film sucked? I remember really liking some of that. I answered that already. Okay. Yes, I did. All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Thank you for the questions and the comments and the hanging out in the chat. Thank you for the financial support, those of you who are patrons or members. And I will see you next time. Have a good night. Have a good weekend. Take care of yourselves, everybody. Bye-bye.